So in the first lesson for today, God's kind of frustrated. I mean, God is saying that he speaks to his people, but they don't listen. God knows his people see the needs around them, but they don't do anything about it. And God says, I know in their minds they comprehend what I want, but they don't do it. And I know God gets frustrated with me. He's got to. And then there's Isaiah. And he has this vision. And these cherubims and seraphims, whatever they are talking to him. And they kind of let Isaiah know that God wants Isaiah to do some stuff on God's behalf. And Isaiah said, I'm a sinner. I'm a man of unclean lips. I can't do it. And so God, out of frustration, just kind of goes, well, who am I going to send? And Isaiah finally says, okay, send me. There's a song like that. Here I am, Lord, send me. My favorite song. And so Isaiah responds with an incredible act of faith. My buddy down the block isn't going to do it. My neighbor's not going to do it. Not the people over there. Here I am, Lord, send me. I will do what you want. Back in the 50s, there was an 8-acre parcel of land growing wild on the Grange Road. And somebody in their infinite or not so infinite wisdom thought it might be a good place to build a church. And so there was a guy named Norm Hjelm, a Swedish guy, who came out here and he kind of said, here I am, Lord, send me. And he started knocking on doors. And a few of you, and there's not many left, back in 1959 and 60 and 61, your door was knocked on and you said, okay, here I am, Lord, send me, we'll give it a try. Now, Norm Hjelm didn't last here very long, but he got the whole thing started. Little did you know that another Swedish guy would come years later and doesn't have the brains to leave. He just hangs around year after year after year. Best thing that ever happened to me. But sometimes maybe you hear the voice and something needs to be done. And you simply got to say, here I am, Lord, send me. Nobody else is going to do it. In fact, nobody else should do it. Maybe it's time for us to answer the call. There was a young couple years ago, 35, 40 years ago, living in California. And they had this soft spot for fragile kids. And God knows for what reason, they live in California, and they bought 18 acres of land in rural Texas. And they had a couple of foster kids. So here's the Jewish guy who has to be reminded by a Lutheran minister whenever Passover is, that's how good a Jew he is. And he's married to a Baptist who was tired of going to church, and she had no idea what a Lutheran was. But somehow, some way, they moved to Texas, put a double wide on this property, had a couple of foster children, and then things started to happen. And it's kind of like the Lord said, who's going to do this? And they said, here I am, Lord, send me. I'm not sure if I can do it. I don't know where the money's going to come from. What if I can't make it? I'm a nurse. He's a pipe fitter. And now I got this hunk of land. And all of a sudden, you kind of hear that quiet voice pushing you, and you finally say, okay, they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. It needs to be done. Here I am, Lord. Send me. I can't speak for you, but so often I see something that needs to be done. There's a need. It might be a small one. And I wait, because certainly someone else will come along and do it. Maybe I'm too busy, my least favorite word in the history of the world. Maybe I think to myself, I got enough going on. What if I try this and I fail? What if people make fun of me and think it's stupid? And sometimes, you look at the world and it's big. And we see pictures of what's happening in the world and you wonder, what difference is it going to make if I do anything? What's going on in Venezuela? Families without homes, even in our own neighborhoods. Kids who aren't safe. And so it's tempting to think it's too big, so I'm just going to walk the other way. After all, what difference is it going to make? But then you see one person who is struggling. You see one kid off in the corner who every single day eats lunch by herself. You hear that one person, that the circle of life, and it goes around and around for the most part in the right direction. Then all of a sudden something happens and the circle goes backwards and they can't move on without some help from somebody else. And maybe that person should be me. Sure, somebody else could do it, but I think of Jesus and I think of those words in the first lesson for today. And I realize it always can't be somebody else. Sometimes you and I got to say, "Here I am, Lord, send me." Because if everybody ignores the call, nothing is going to happen. My guess is each one of you has somebody in your life that has been an incredible inspiration. Somebody who challenges you just by their presence to be the very, very best you can be. I spent a good part of Friday with my son and his cross-country and track coach from 20 years ago at North Central College. And so I walk into Al Carius' office, and I hadn't seen him for a while. And I said, "Al," and we, big hug, big man hug. And I said, "Al, how long have you been doing this?" And he said, 53 years. And he said, "Well, Don, how long have you been doing that?" And I said, 45 years, and I'm going to catch you. And he says, "No, you're not." And I said, "Why not?" "Because I'm never going to quit." And he talks just like that. "I'm never going to quit." His passion for kids, his passion for his work is absolutely incredible. Why? Because he doesn't care if they win or lose. He doesn't care what place they come in. All he cares about is the content and the character of his soul and their spirit. He says time and time again, what makes you a winner is what goes on inside your heart song and your soul and your spirit. And somehow, if you can capture the essence of your spirit, then no matter what place you're in, you're a winner and you're going to end up a good person. 76 years old. He's battled cancer. And I remember the first time I went into his office when Jeremy was deciding which school to go to years and years ago. He said this to me, and I've never forgotten. He said, "Reverend, I shouldn't be telling you this, Reverend, but I'm going to." He said, "You can believe anything you want, but it's what you know deep inside your soul that makes you who you are. Many people claim to believe, but it's what you know down deep inside here that makes you the person you are and are going to be." And then he said, "Okay, Don, before we leave, what about you? What about your feeling about religion and the church? I want to know what you think." And this is what I told him. And I mean it from the depth of my heart. I said, "Al, I do not know what the future holds. And I don't want to know what the future holds. But here is what I do know. And I did not learn this in college or seminary or minister school. I learned it from people like you, Al, and the people I preach to every single Sunday. Because my biggest teacher is the book of life and the journey we're on today. And people like you, Everett, for there." And I told him, I said, what matters most in life is how we choose to live each day. When our journey is laced with grace and decency, when we treat others with a sense of fairness and goodness, when kindness is our blueprint, that is all that matters. And if our religion helps us along the way, if going to church or your place of worship inspires you and encourages you to be kind and decent unto others, then that is the only religion that we need. A religion that is true and good and empowers our soul to be the best. And then we embraced, and I left. And on my way home in the privacy of my own pickup truck, I sang this song, and I hope you'll sing it with me. It's 574. I think you'll recognize it. We'll just sing the first verse. 574. My people cry, all who dwell in dark and sin, my heart will sing. I who made the stars of light, I will make their darkness light. Who will bear my light to them? Whom shall I send? Here I am, Lord. Is it I, Lord? I have heard you cry in the night. I will go, Lord. If you lead me, I will hold your needle in my heart. Thanks for sharing that.